Welcome, everybody, to our Tuesday weekly community live stream. Let's get rid of our banner here so you can see everybody. Boom. We have a guest this evening. Sky has started some Discord servers. So I'm going to turn it over to her in just a little bit after we get through with what we normally do is start with brief and debrief. Then we'll turn it over to Sky and she can share a little bit about her Discord servers. So let us know what series exam you're taking, where you're joining us from. If you do ask a question in chat, it's really nice. We have victorious test takers who pop into the chat. But if you have a question for Brian and I after Sky shares her Discord study servers, make sure you tell us what exam you're taking, because otherwise Brian and I spend a lot of time. Are they asking about 65 or 63? Because on some exams it's important, on other exams it's not. And so it's just helpful for us to figure that out. And if you put that cue there, then we're not interrupting your chat. If you're chatting back and forth amongst each other, we'll just, we don't need to bring that chat up and share it. All right, so let's talk about brief and debrief for this week. No surprise on SIE exams. This is nothing new. Customer accounts, joint tenants, tenants in common, UPMAs, no surprise there. You got to know that. Stock splits, got to be able to do practical application of that. No change in proportion ownership. Very basic options. If you tell me you missed the mark on the SIE because of options, I'm going to say, I don't believe you, so. But there's stuff that's there is there. Series 7 exam, I'll link 2 videos for you on this. The continues to come up on the business development corporations, a type of closed-end fund lacking liquidity, all the share classes, A, B, and C share classes, and variable annuities. So I will link to a very good Knopfman variable annuity. Do you have anything on YouTube for free, Brian, on variable annuities?
I don't believe so.
So anyways, I'll link to that for those of you who might find that interesting as a review. 65, 66, same thing again. You got to recognize input and output. Not so much can you do the math. Can you recognize the formulas? So, that's more than, can do it. Unethical business practices, always big. Administrative jurisdiction, I'll post a little video, 15-minute video I have on that. Consistently, people have to calculate the NAV. I think you should feel lucky if that's the math you get asked to do on a 65, 66 as compared to some other things they might ask. Something that's been coming up consistently is the current ratio and working capital, where you have to use a balance sheet exhibit, or you got to be able to pull it out of there and know what the current assets are looking at the balance sheet. So I'll probably make a little something to help you out on that. But remember,
I do have a free YouTube video on the balance sheet.
I'll go find it, Brian, and I will link it into the replay for those people who are joining us by replay. And then current ratio, current assets divided by current liabilities, working capital, current assets minus current liabilities. So that's what came up on that debrief. I don't know if we have any 24s joining us this evening. Always very little margin. There's very little math on the 24. I find this interesting. This test taker told me they got nothing on net capital, but then told me they got asked about debt to equity, which is net capital. So I'm kind of a little torn about that, because that is a subordinated loan, right? So let's see. Series 4, we had a Series 4 debrief.
Wow.
Margin calculations. I would definitely, if you're 9 or 4, definitely know that spreads are a sales supervisor, registered option principal friend. Because remember, the spread, all the action takes place between the strikes. And it's a way of making that margin calculation go poof. At debit spread, the margin is the debit, right? And within, in a credit spread, it's going to be leave the credit in the account and give us the loss. So, and then recognizing the 20% or 10%, 20% is initial and then 20%. Okay, Sky, let me give you some more real estate. There you go. I'll turn it over to you about your Discord groups.
Thank you. First of all, I'm so sorry about the tan lines, guys. I had a bit of a tanning bed mishap next week, so I apologize for that. Anyways, my name is Sky. I'm known as Senator Bob Bobbington on Reddit, and then on Discord, I'm Cringe Goddess Sky. We have 3 different Discord study groups. One is the Series 7. That one's really detailed. I've built a lot of channels inside of it that basically gives you the rundown TLDR as best as I could on some of the more difficult subjects. There's also a Series 66 Discord. That one was not made by me, but I am in that one. I have made a channel in there as well. I just started a Series 24 Discord study group server today because I just passed my 66 and the 24 is the next one that I need to get. So for some reason on YouTube and on Reddit, those websites don't seem to like me just sharing those Discord invite links right there on the page. So if you have a Reddit account, if you want to find me on Reddit, again, that's Senator Bob Bobbington, just shoot me a DM. I can send you an invite link to the 7, the 66, or the 24.
Fantastic. I like our Reddit communities also, and I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but Reddit, there's a Facebook page for me, and I post stuff there. And on Reddit, we have 3 Reddit communities. We have R Series 7, R66, and R24. 7 is for SIE and 7, and I cross-post so you can find Sky's messages there. And the 66 is for 63, 65, 66, and the 24 is for 9, 10s, and 24. So check out the Reddit communities. I consider them to be kind of sister communities to the YouTube channel. And then I got to say thank you so much because we crossed 1 million views on the YouTube channel this week and 10,000 subscribers. So woo-hoo. All right. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Sky, I'm going to let you go. Anybody have any comments for Sky? I'll just check real quick. It looks like we're good to go. So Sky, thanks for joining us. Anytime you want to come on and promote, you're welcome to do so here. I think study groups are wonderful. I'm not a Discord guy, but I've heard Discord is a wonderful place for people to meet. I know there's a lot of my friends who have very, I don't know what the right word is, private Discord chats that they love. You know, I always feel left out. I'm not a part of that.
If anybody doesn't know how to use Discord, if they just want to go ahead and create an account and join, I can always walk them through any of the features. So
Perfect.
FYI for you guys.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Okay, Brian, now it's back to you and I, and my friend. All right, let's see what we got going on in the comments. STC states 0 coupon bonds suffer from interest rate risk. They certainly do. Remember, the income stream is 0. So they don't have a stated. No, it's not instead. It's both. You know, Brian, would you say both?
They are the most interest rate sensitive bond because of their infinite duration, if that means anything to anybody. It's the most common question. I don't know what exam this is, but
7. I think you said 7.
It's the most interest rate sensitive. It does have a fixed rate of return, therefore it could be interest rate sensitive.
You know, I don't think STC is wrong on that. That's not instead.
No,
it's not instead. It's both. You have inflationary risk and you have interest rate risk, because remember, the income stream acts as a floor on the bond's volatility. So if there's no income stream, it's going to be more volatile. So when you get an answer like that, Richard, on your actual exam, you always want to pick the longest maturity with the lowest coupon, long and low. That's usually the right answer. So we go long and then we have a 0. That's going to be the answer for sure. I always joke, if you want to sound smart, somebody asks you about economics, finance, or investments, has a lot to do with interest rates, and you shut up, you'll sound good. Bonds on the SIE, I'm not sure. That's a big category. So send us another chat about a little more isolation on that. Yeah, Brian's doing the teeter-totter seesaw. So make sure you understand the inverse relationship. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Simon. Hi, Savannah. Yeah, well, that's the key. You got to keep plugging, right? You know, as I can say, always say, keep grinding, stay the course. 63 is not something that's easy to kind of stay up for. It's mainly legalese. So make sure you do lots of practice questions, Savannah. That's why I would attack that. Read the book maybe once and then start doing practice questions. Good debrief. We got some debrief coming in. Victorious test takers. Straightforward, no math questions. Yeah. There you go. I wish we could convince people of that, because I can't tell you how many people go down math rabbit hole unnecessarily. Pure definitions. There we go. We have a third practice exam that'll be up Thursday. So we have a practice exam I wrote. We have a test key practice exam, And we have a premiere Thursday of a Kaplan practice exam, 66. So thank you for popping in. Hey, victorious test takers are in the house. If you got any questions about the 66, you have a victorious test taker you can ask. Oscar, Sky has left us. I don't have the link, but if you go to the Reddit, R Series 7, R Series 24, she's there. It's Senator Bob Bobbington is the user, and you can ask her and get the link. I don't have the link. Okay, let's see. Did I miss anything here? There we go. There's the contact information. You would go to Reddit, and you'd find it there. Anything else? Is that it? Is that all the questions? Are we missing something? Can't believe that. Whoop.
No, we got them coming. Got them coming.
Okay, let's see. I was gonna say, who knows? Get to go watch my basketball. Got a big NBA night.
A big college basketball night. College basketball.
That Duke, yeah, that would be Duke and
Duke and Kansas.
Good. Yeah. So 7 and 2 weeks. All right, cool. You're welcome. Yeah, there's a lot of questions, Richards, on zero coupon bonds. Besides that, make sure you know there's no calculation of accrued interest on a zero coupon bond. Make sure you know that zero coupon bonds are good for somebody who wants to lock in a rate of return. Yeah, Brian?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Lock in a rate of return, or another way they sometimes say that as phraseology on the test is reduce reinvestment risk. And then remember, you have 3 issuers of zero coupon bonds. You have the corporations, municipalities. Now, municipalities, the imputed interest you're receiving is not taxable. And then you have treasury receipts and treasury strips. And then you need to there you go. So also make sure you know on a zero coupon bond, I can't imagine any draw on any of the exams, you're not going to get zero coupon bonds, very high probability. But also make sure you know that imputed interest is taxable. So you're doing straight line amortization upward called accretion, and that accreted amount is taxed. So Brian just put that on his whiteboard there. Let me give him some more real estate. So you can see there.
Again, we don't know what exam this is, but for Series 7.
It's Series 7, he told us. That's on me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't tell you.
So, yeah, and he's absolutely right. Several zero coupons. Don't forget, if you have college kids or young kids saving for college, they're always after the zero coupon.
I had some
reason.
I had Brian, somebody take an exception to a suitability practice question I have in one of my exams. And they said that why wasn't it a 529? I said in the question, I specifically said they want a set sum of money at some future date. And in a 529, you don't know what certain sum you're going to get. So, it's okay. I mean, it's kind of
that's
like
world versus real world.
Exactly.
Nobody uses zero coupons for college savings anymore, except the Series 7.
Yeah. And then I told Brian I had somebody on one of your practice exams. I said, just call Brian. I'm not gonna, he's waiting on your call.
Absolutely.
Well, I have Oscar. And I will link in the replay a suitability playlist. I have 4 hours of videos on suitability. So one of them is called Suitability in 60 Minutes. I just literally go through all the investment vehicles and when they're suitable and when they're not. Then I have 40 case studies on suitability. I have 50 practice questions on suitability. I'm missing one. I think I got suitability, yes and no. That's in the separate playlist on my YouTube channel, which I think you're joining us from the YouTube channel. There's 6 separate playlists. Brian and I tend to agree that a lot of people who think it's suitability, because people come back, suitability. It's really investment vehicles, like just what we talked about with the zero. If you don't know investment vehicles, that's function 3 in the FINRA content outline, 91 questions. You're not going to be doing well on suitability, right? If you don't know that you can't get in or out of a partnership without the permission of GP, the general partner, then you won't know that it's not appropriate. It's unsuitable for somebody seeking liquidity, right? If you don't know that a mutual fund is about professional management, diversification, and ease of ownership, you won't know that it can be used to eliminate unsystematic or non-systematic risk. So that would be my thing for you, is to make sure you understand investment vehicles. Brian, you have any comments on that?
You're absolutely right. I have in my class notes a nice little graph that connects objective with investment product and risk, and they're all connected.
Brian's great on his. He's got his. He offers our viewers and subscribers 20% off. Guru 20 is the discount code for his content, which is excellent. And all in on Brian's videos, it comes with what are called his quick notes, I think, or class notes.
Yep.
And if you just want his class notes with his beautiful charts and stuff, that's like $40 or $36. I would suggest going all in. But one thing I love, he does is his charts, particularly like 65, 66. He has this little chart where, basically when I'm tutoring somebody, I have Brian's content, I'll say, well, let's put your firm in that box, you in that box, let's go through it. So he's pretty good at simplifying stuff, in a good way. So I always want you, Chris, to be 70% plus. So I'm a little less of a high score than accountability partners. What do you have a score you're looking for, Brian?
Absolutely. It's got to be in the 70s. I like 75 as an average.
Higher the better.
Yeah.
For sure.
But definitely in the 70s. I'm the same way. I'm not one of those, you got to score 87 or something.
Yeah, and particularly if you're 87, you're memorizing. But we had a guy today on social media. He was giving me scores. I go, listen, you're not at risk. You're going to be fine. So a couple of things here. You don't want to memorize questions, but towards the end of your study sessions, you want to be inventorying your skills by taking practice tests. And, you got to commit to X number of practice tests. People who say people do too many practice tests, that's usually not the case. It's usually the opposite. And they don't find out until too late, they need remediation. So what you need to do is remediation. I just did a tutoring with a guy just before we got on the live. And I said, hey, listen, why don't you say Brian's practice model is kind of your final kind of green light, if you will, because that has very strong correlation to the exam. And you got to do that. You got to know where you're at before you go into the test, I guess is what I would say.
That's right.
Yeah, well, there you go. I call that just under dream draw, not a sweetheart, but but you got to be prepared, Justin, for what I call the face of death draw. The face of death draw. Yeah, Brian has some free stuff on YouTube. So if you want a preview of Brian, check out. There's a link to his YouTube channel and his website on my channel. And if you need to contact Brian, yeah, there you go. There's Brian's email.
That's my email. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you need to contact him, feel free to do so. Let's see, for VIX. VIX is definitely on the Series 7. Well, I don't like to say it that way, Richard. What I would say is it has negative correlation. For test purpose, the VIX has negative correlation on the market. It's a volatility index. I would know a couple things, Richard, that are testable. It's based on the S&P 500. I would know that. I would know that for test purposes, it has negative correlation. So if I think the market's going down, I would buy a call on the VIX, right? So your point, a call on the VIX is actually a bearish position. Right. So you could be using that as a hedge if you have a stock portfolio, or you could be using that as a speculator. So I wouldn't say it's a put. It's similar, right? They're both bearish transactions. You got any comments on that, Brian?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, the VIX definitely is on the 7, but I don't really think they go into the analysis of it. They simply that it's the volatility index on the S&P 500, that's a basic question.
Yeah.
And they might use a VIX spread just to kind of illustrate a spread.
Yeah, that's a good point. Richard, Brian brings up a good point. I used to tell people, as long as I didn't tell you the OEX was an index or the VIX was an index, you'd be fine. I had a guy who was doing very well. And I said, man, that's pretty cool. You're getting all those index questions, right? He goes, index? He didn't even know they were indexes. So I'm with Brian. If you just went about your business more often than not, you'd be okay. It's just like a straddle with different strike prices is called a combination. If you didn't know that and you just thought you were looking at a straddle and you did all your straddle things, you would be fine. Zena, can we do taxable equivalent yield, please? We certainly can. Either Brian can do it on his board or I can do it on a whiteboard, but I know how much Brian loves his board. So let's put Brian there.
Your customer owns a 5% muni. They're in the 30% tax bracket. Is looking for additional income through a corporate bond. Muni yield divided by the complement of the tax brackets equals the equivalent corporate bond, taxable. 5 divided by 0.7. Done. That's all there is.
So they're either going to ask you to go from the tax-free to the taxable or the taxable to the tax-free.
So that
So
would
you're either
simply
gonna-
be corporate yield times the complement of the tax brackets.
Zena, I have a little 15-minute lecture too, and I'm going to start linking in the tutoring replays or tutoring replays, live replays. And so I will link, I timestamp them, and this is going to be at 20 minutes in, and I will link to Brian's board work so you can watch it again if you want to. And I'll also put a link to my little 15-minute carve out on that.
I've been.
By the way, that's very testable, Zine. I don't know what you're doing.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah, so that's on the SIE, that's on the 7, that's on the 65, that's on the 66. There is no draw of any exam in which you're not going to have to do that. So, by the way, Justin, yes, nothing new, but you can't be fumbling around with calculating parity. So it's the same stuff. I just had a test taker today, passed, said he had 3 parity calculations. So make sure you can do that. The VIX, anything. I mean, it's confirming what we already know, Justin. I haven't anything really new. Have you heard any something you go, wow, that's new?
No. I guess the newest thing for me is having the current ratio on the Series 7.
Yeah.
Which was always
65,
66.
Yeah, I'm with you. The other one that keeps coming up too new is for 66s and 65s is calculating the NAV, which, I never had anybody tell me they had to do that till very recently. So
yeah. Probably about the last 8 to 10 months.
Well, Chris, man, if you're getting 77, that's where we want you to be. So no worries. No worries. Another victorious test taker. Woo! Woo! So 3 times a few days. There you go. So she passed her 66. She's now an investment advisor representative with all the rights and privileges thereof. That should conclude her testing journey. Brian and I come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to help you pass your exams. The season is how long it takes you to do that. I'm always very pleased. Today, somebody told me, Dean, they're going to stick around even though they passed all their exams and help other people and be a participant. I'm like, all right. I told you the channel recently crossed 10,000 subscribers, but if people didn't unsubscribe when they passed their exams, I'd probably be at 12,000. It's a vanity number for sure, but I have people who will send me messages saying, Dean, I appreciate it, but I'm unsubscribing because I'm done with my testing journey. I go, okay, I get it. I mean, hurts my heart, but I like it. I like that. Yeah, that's, I lay enough base. So in the beginning of your study, executing your study plan, you want to make sure you're laying enough base to do practice tests, because you don't want to start out doing a practice test because there are people who think they can pass by just doing practice tests. No, you got to lay base knowledge. So once you've laid some base knowledge through reading, doing quizzes, watching videos, then you should have a target date to do your first practice test, whenever that is, and get that score. And again, don't put too much into it because it's just, it's a starting point for the back half, the second half or, the bottom of the 7th, the stretch innings, whatever you want to call it. And then, like I say, commit to how many you're going to do. So if you're going to do 8 practice exams and Brian's test over the next 2 weeks, I can't imagine that's not going to lead to the big P that Brian has on the board there. So, Erica, how are you? How now? Erica, I hope you've been working hard. I know that last community live stream, you had some option questions. We did a protective put. But again, we just had somebody take the SIE, 3 questions, very basic on the SIE. So on the SIE margins, I know the documentation. So you need to have a general understanding of the credit agreement, the hypothecation agreement, the loan consent form, which is optional. And then Erica, on every exam, they love stupid but testable, the $2,000 trick for the initial transaction. So that's for SIE, that's for Series 7, that's for 24, 9s, 10s. So the trick there is if you buy for less than 2, I'll give it to Brian again on the board. There you go, Brian. Boom. Want to take that one?
Yeah, for small transactions, the minimum deposit is $2,000 unless the stock transaction is less than $2,000, then you're going to have to pay 100%. So the way we put it is the minimum, and this is a FINRA minimum, not an FRB. It's one way to kind of distinguish the difference. A FINRA minimum for small transactions, $2,000 or 100% of the transaction, whichever is less.
And Erica, I think you're definitely going to see that even more so than some of those option questions you were asking about last week. So,
Dean, if you don't mind me interrupting, I know of one other margin question that can show up on the SIE.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that is which securities are not margin.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Options and mutual funds, basically.
Yep.
And
well, mutual funds are the same reason. In 1934, we took credit extension away from broker dealers and gave it to the Federal Reserve Board. It's called Reg T. And so under Reg T is where you have to put up the 50%. And then the Fed gets to decide what's ineligible for purchase on margin. And you can't buy a new issue on margin. It's considered new issue 30 days from the effective date. And Brian's correct. An open-ended fund meets that definition, right? So, but basic again, but customer accounts are certainly there. I'm very proud of my SIE playlist. There's lots of stuff there. And in terms, Erica, of practice exam, you have the FINRA practice exam that you can watch me do, hit pause, answer, and then I explicate and talk about why the wrong answers are wrong and right answers are right. Then I have a doppelganger of that where I actually wrote an exam that's the opposite of the FINRA SIE exam. So everything that was a wrong answer on that was offered to a distractor on mine is correct. And then the ones that were right on theirs are now wrong answers. I have Brian's Test Geek. He's always kind enough to let us use his content. And so there's also Brian's Test Geek SIE practice final where you can watch. Now, again, I don't know why people get hung up on this. If you want the PDF of that, you can have it. It's like $16, but it is literally the PDF and the answer key. It's not any added stuff. If you want Brian's whole version, then we talked about that earlier. And then there's 2 Kaplan practice finals. So what is that? 6 practice finals. So there's literally 49 videos in my SIE playlist. You actually get more content in that playlist than you get if you came to a 3-day class with me.
And I always recommend people take the FINRA practice SIE exam as well.
Yeah. Now, if you I'd save that again and try not to memorize it. But yeah, it's great. It's great. So that's on the FINRA website. People always ask, why don't they have that for Series 7? I don't know. Somebody, options on foreign currencies. First, Justin, I would tell you it's not a major deal. Second thing I would tell you is that people always ask about it. So if you go to my options playlist, there is a video on non-equity options that would include foreign currencies, indexes, all that. I'm not so sure I would use the options aerobics matrix for that, except that you could be bullish or bearish on a country. To that extent, the matrix would work. But really, the ones you need are EPIC. That's our memory aid device. You want to put that on your board there, Brian?
And it's reverse.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely Series 7.
Yeah. So, Justin, this does come up. So if I'm a U.S. exporter, I always use like Boeing.
I do too. Yeah. That's what
there
I
you
do.
go. Well, Brian's from the Northwest. So no surprise.
Exactly.
P.S. Justin, be careful. I'm not being facetious. We first got to establish that the U.S. dollar is not a foreign currency, right? So if I'm Boeing, what I'm worried about is the yen is weak, and I'm not going to get as many, dollars. And so what I'm going to do is in the exchange, in the options market, do something that I think could profit from a declining yen to offset my exchange thing. So as Brian has there, exporters like Boeing buy puts on yen or whatever it is the currency they're doing. Now, the one I use for importers, Justin, is if I'm a U.S. Importer of wine, I use European wine. So what am I afraid of? I'm not afraid that I go to Europe and my dollars are strong and I come back with more wine. No. What I'm afraid of is the dollar is weak. The dollar is not a foreign currency. So what I'm really afraid of is the euro is going to go up against the dollar. There's an inverse relationship. So again, I want to do an option transaction that would be profitable in that scenario to offset my loss in what's called the spot market. So as a U.S. importer, I would buy calls on the euro. Now, be careful on the perspective of the test. So Brian has up there the reverse. Yes, I think it's less likely it'll be the reverse. But if I'm a Japanese exporter, right, that would be the opposite, right? So if I'm a Japanese exporter, I'm selling things in the U.S., I'm not worried about, again, the dollar going up and buying me more yen, right? I'm afraid about the dollar going down, which means the yen's going up. So the exporter from the Japanese would buy a call and the importer would buy a put. I think 1 point maybe, Brian, 2?
1 or 2.
Yeah.
And sorry to disagree with you a tad.
Okay.
But the foreign corporation shows up.
Okay. There you go. I know when people are confused, that's always the one I get. They go, "Oh, Dave, I got Epic, and Epic didn't work here." And it's always because they're looking at a practice question that's the foreign corporation. So
That's the other one. Yeah. It's
it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think we saw that one already.
Yes, we did.
We did that one already.
Yeah.
No, Laura, I just think that's the hard way. Do you have any tricks for memorizing that, Brian? On the
again, sorry, I do have a visual that I think is kind of helpful.
Okay.
I don't have them in downloadable PDFs. They're only on the video course.
Laura, I listened. So $80 all in on Brian's 24 videos and his stuff. And I have never heard anybody on 24. We have our Reddit for 24. A lot of people always are singing Brian's praises. That he really helped him kind of get a handle on some of that. I also know that he has some free videos on the 24 on YouTube as well, Laura. And then, I'm more than willing to help you out on stuff as well. If you're using Kaplan, it's easier for me to help you because I have the Kaplan QBank and I teach the Kaplan courses. But let's make sure you pass. So there's my email. And I don't have any shortcuts. Brian sounds like he does. So either $40 or $80 all in. Oh, it's not downloadable, so she wouldn't get that in the.
That's right. I don't have the downloadable 24 stuff.
Listen, 24, it's worth the money, I think. So
Yeah.
just saying, invest. You got to invest. Okay, so by the way, I'd add to that, Laura, that more often than not, people who struggle on the 24, it's not because of that stuff. It's usually because of the judgment questions, where they get a scenario and then they have to figure out from that scenario what's the right thing or wrong thing. You are welcome. Woohoo, Series 6, here we come. Hope you did well on your SIE study effort. Sounds like you did, because it'll pay huge dividends on your 6.
It really does.
Huge dividends. Well, obviously, I think the Kaplan's Series 9 is the best. But, I'm prejudicial because, I teach for Kaplan as an independent contractor. I'm not a salaried employee. But I don't think you go wrong with STC or Kaplan. In terms of social media, we're agnostic about your study choice. We're here to help everybody. But again, if you choose Kaplan, there's a lot more help I can provide backstage because you don't have to cut and paste stuff. I mean, I'm helping you anyways. I would avoid Past Perfect just because I think they go too much in the weeds. So, I'm not a big fan of Past Perfect for that reason. I'd stay away from, I think Exam FX and training consultants are a little thin. So, we're not in the business of recommending study materials. However, I don't hesitate.
Are you getting folks on your Reddit site for the 9 and 10?
We are. Brian and I have been talking about collaborating. I'm getting a lot of 9 and 10.
I've been directing a lot of people there.
Yeah. So Laura, we've actually opened up this weekly call to 9s, 10s, 24s, 4s, and I think it's, I was thinking about doing a separate live stream, but listen, it's always much time in the day. But join our Reddit over there, and you can put up a poll. We had a poll the other day, and it was neck and neck between Kaplan and STC. And then in the poll, the STC came up, I think, 5 votes ahead of Kaplan. So people either love their 9, 10, 24 materials or they hate them. There's no
That's it. It's no STC and Kaplan. STC and Kaplan. Yeah.
So yeah, 24. If you think you're going to need a 24 and you have a choice, go for it. If it's mandatory, that takes care of that. But the people who mainly struggle on 24 are people who are packaged products person. It's been a long, long time ago when they did their 7. So
that's right.
So
that's the first question I always asked in my 24 class. How long has it been since you've taken the series?
That's exactly right. I tell them if they're at risk. I mean, we think everybody's going to pass. I just finished a 42-person 24 class. So wow. I love it, Brian. You'll love this. Wow. So Kaplan, I said to Kaplan, that's a little high enrollment for, I would rather you keep it at 20 or 25. And then somebody says, oh man, that just is proof the 11th edition is so popular. And I go, don't kid yourself. It's Dean that's popular, not the 11th edition.
Exactly. That's right. That's
So I
right.
was pushing it in.
That's a big 24 class.
So Erica has some questions for our victorious test taker, T. Dyer, I think was our successful person. Underwriting, I think you should have a handle on underwriting. Certainly 33, certainly munis. They do have questions about selling group members not being liable for unsold securities, the management fee being the smallest individual component of the spread, the selling concession, the total takedown, competitive versus negotiated. So yeah, I would feel bad. That's not, if you tell me you failed because of underwriting, I don't think I'd go that far. But I would say you're leaving points on the table there in terms of not having a handle on that. What would you say, Brian?
Yeah, I have a wonderful illustration of the underwriting process.
There you go. There you go.
I do believe, however, and I think, Dean, you and I have both mentioned this, that especially for the munis, they don't go as deeply into that muni underwriting stuff anymore.
Oh, Caitlin, please. I have a lecture on mnemonic memory aid devices, and I can't tell you how many people will send me an email say, how come you don't have pro golfers don't miss or
That's
pretty
right.
good day more? And I said, because it hasn't been tested in years.
That's right.
So the vendors had still got pre-sale group designated members. So, use whether it's my YouTube channel or Brian's paid supplement to get confirmation, because Brian is right. Almost every vendor goes way more in the weeds on underwriting than you need. Do you need to understand that? Yes, but boy, they have the one that comes up to Caitlin just on debrief is that I can't tell you how many people told me they get a question like your firm sold 50,000 bonds and you have to figure out there was a half a point of concession and a half a point's $5.
Absolutely.
You got to figure out what that is in terms of compensation.
So if I may briefly,
Sure.
know the 33 Act and the underwriting process.
Cooling off period, absolutely.
Don't spend a lot of time on the muni underwriting.
Yeah, make sure you got the 20 days, preliminary prospectuses, don't have final offering price, indication of interest, non-binding, all tested.
And that also leads into the exemptions, the 144, the Reg Ds,
Yeah,
the Reg As.
Yeah, make sure you know Reg D, credit investors. So Caitlin, I wish I could say, blow it off, but don't. But fly high, stay on the broad avenues and highways of underwriting. Don't go down any cul-de-sacs or alleys.
May I use that analogy?
Of course,
I like that. That's good. Stay on the highways and the byways.
How many practice? Yeah, I mean, people get off and I'm like, hey, get back on over here. How many practice exams do you think is good to take for an average? I don't know. If I were your accountability partner, I would leave that up to you, Lo. So let's say we're a week out. I would say, as your accountability partner, how many practice exams am I going to see from you? And you might say one every other day, and I might say that's fine.
You got it. 7 to 10 days, one every other week, working on the weak areas in between. You got it. You nailed it. So, that's it.
You don't want to wear yourself out too. So, Eric, I'm not sure about the FINRA thing. Who's not allowed to open an IRA? What I would say a minor. Yes, you can't fund an IRA with the dividends and capital gains. That's true. Sole income is alimony. I think this question came up and people didn't like the answer. And it was, I had explicated a practice exam. And basically I said, given the answer set, the best answer was the dividends and capital gains.
Has to be earned income.
That's what they're after. And I think I don't know if you're the same person, but that person had a thing about income as alimony has changed, and that doesn't affect the answer they're expecting on Series 7 was my rationale. Right. Yeah, what would you say, Brian?
Yeah. It has to be earned income.
Yeah, that's what they're getting out of the test.
That's what you need to know. It has to be earned income. Again,
my idea about saying on broad avenues and highways and of the information, you don't want to get into where when I tell you to talk to Brian about his practice question or this Kaplan question, that's not where you want to be. You want to be with what we're telling you is the test issue, not what you want to add to it or why you think your answer is better, because we're just here to help you pass the test. We don't care about somebody opening an IRA in the real world. We care about Series 7 fantasy land. Now, good news, after you pass your Series 7, you get to leave the Series 7 fantasy land. Brian and I are stuck here permanently. No wonder we're demented. We never get to leave the Series 7 fantasy land. So anyways, given that answer set, you need to know it's the dividends and capital gains. That's on the exam. That's the question, and that's the right answer.
I live, but in the test world. I have no real life.
You're welcome, Rosario. You're welcome. I saw your MSRB question about FRB not being in charge of the securities industry. That's not what I said. I said that when we set up the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board in 1975, we denied them the enjoyment of enforcement. We said all they're allowed to do is publish rules. They have no enforcement power. I said, so that means if you're a bank exclusively conducting a municipal securities business, then you would be, those rules would be enforced by the Federal Reserve Board, the Comptroller of Currency, and FDIC. And if you're a brokerage firm, it'll be the same people that always do, which is FINRA and the SEC.
Dean, this is a classic question. All the following enforce MSRB rules except
there you go.
The MSRB.
Yeah, they have A rules, administrative rules, D rules,
They write
definition
them,
rules,
but they don't enforce
G rules.
them.
I definitely know G37. That's the $250. I would know they can't switch your rules. So I saw your MSRB about not being in charge of the securities industry. They're in charge of the SEC is in charge of that. So I'm not quite sure what your thing is, but Brian just gave you the question and the answer on the exam, right? So that is exactly what they're asking on the exam. You're welcome. I got a question about my practice about a small value margin. The explanation of short margin is 100%. No, if you're short, it's going to be, you got to come up with the 2.
Minimum 2 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's because it's short. And then if you're shorting below 5, there's a little exception too. Again, mainly a vendor exception and not really something that you would see on the actual exam.
There you go. The long and the short of it.
I like it.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Stay with what you know.
The link, the playlist for the 24, I'll put in the replay, but you just go to my channel, and if on the channel, there are playlists, and you would go to the playlist at the top of the homepage, and you would see the Series 24 as a playlist, and you'd hit that. It would show you all the videos in suggested watch order. Good news for you. There will be more content coming up soon on the 24. I'm going to do a practice exam there. It's a Kaplan. Brian and I are working on our own one together. So there will be some more 9, 10, 24 content for sure. Brian has some free YouTube 24 videos that are excellent. I had somebody who just told me they were enlightened when they watched Brian talk about buy-ins and sellouts. I forgot to share that with you, Brian, or maybe I forgot. But
no, you didn't. But thank you.
I hope she bought your stuff because I sent her the link to that YouTube video, and she came back and said, "Oh," she was, that just that aha factor. So there will be more. So that's how that works on the channel. You just go to my homepage, you go to the playlist, you'll see 24. You hit the 24 playlist. They all come up in suggested watch order. Well, I don't know what you mean, Zena, about can we do a convertible bond? Are you up to a parity calculation, Brian, or not?
I can. And
I'm not sure it lends itself well, but if he's up to it, we'll let him do it. So
I'll do it in 22.3 seconds.
And then Zena, I will link to the lecture for that on the replay. I have a 20-minute lecture on this.
Now, I don't do it the way the textbooks do it because I don't want people memorizing 46 formulas. So here's what we do. So we have a 6% convertible bond, convertible into stock at $25. If the market price of the bond appreciates to, let's say, 110, remember that's a percentage of par, then the market price of the stock would have to go up as well to remain equal in value. That's the parity price. Now, here's this secret sauce. No formulas. You can obviously see the bond has risen by 10% in value. So guess what the stock has to do? It has to go up 10% as well. What's 10% of 25? 2.5. So the parity price would be $27.50.
Yeah, I would just add to that.
22.4 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. So Zena, what you are going to have to do on the exam is calculate parity. So one thing I would add to Brian's thing there is when given the conversion price, you need to establish the conversion ratio. So we need to be able to take that 25. Now Brian did it without the math. But you want to, it's based on par. So you want to be able to 1,000, divide by 25 and come up with 40 shares.
Do we?
And then I'll link to the parity calculation. And you can't be fumbling around with calculating parity. So I like that. It's kind of like on splits, though. Xena is a shortcut, more shares at a lower price. But I will link to the formal 25, 30-minute lecture on convertibles. You are going to get, 3 parity calculations. One other thing I would add, Xena, if we see that so in Brian's example there, parity means equal, right? So 27.50. So if you saw that stock was at 26, ooh, arbitrage opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I would know either the profiting from price discrepancy is arbitrage, and I know it's perfectly legal, and you should expect maybe a arbitrage question, mainly definitional. But if you find a bond or stock that's below parity, there's an arbitrage opportunity. You are welcome, Justin. I think, Justin, you're taking a 7 too. So you add that note to your takeaway from tonight. You need to be able to do parity. I love it. Kaplan's the way to go. What should you focus on munis? You're going to get, I think, options, munis, and mutual funds is where most of the action is, right? So Brian, I think, thinks a little lighter. I think 20 munis. What do you think? Less than that, Brian?
I don't think it's 20.
Okay, well, be able to do taxable. You know what I would suggest, Ina, is get a sheet of paper and fold it in half. And on one side of the paper, write all the terms associated with GOs. And on the other side of the paper, all the terms associated with revenue. Because the biggest part of these questions is distinguishing between GOs and revenues.
That is exactly right. You just nailed it.
So they like to say all the following except, right? All the following are GOs. So, on the revenue side, you'd have, feasibility study, debt service coverage ratio, no voter approval. GO, you'd have voter approval, have all that stuff. So I highly recommend you, while you're doing munis, take that sheet of paper, fold it in half. Every time you come up with a term associated, ad valorem goes with GO, and do that.
I like that.
By the way, Xena, I believe there's a tutoring replay where in the guy's tutoring session, we did just that. We took the whiteboard and I split it in half, and then we just went over all the GOs and all the revenues. Well, Caitlin, Kaplan goes in the weeds, but not as bad as Past Perfect. So all the test prep vendors go in the weeds. That's why Brian is so successful with his paid supplements as a bridge between all the vendors and the actual exam, right? If they didn't do that, Brian would not be making any money.
That's it. I tell people this all the time. If they didn't go into the weeds, I wouldn't have a job. That's exactly right. They all go into the weeds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Kaplan is less guilty than others, I guess, is what I would say.
Except for the 65.
But Caitlin, listen, don't hesitate to send me a Kaplan QID. The QIDs on Kaplan are the top right. And Caitlin, you should know that backstage, I really do get into it with Kaplan sometimes about questions. Recently, I got into it with Kaplan because I said, listen, I get your rationale, but they wouldn't know that till they read the rationale. There's nothing in the question that, and I get it because when you're writing questions, sometimes you're already in your mind, but there's no connection there. And the guy tried to, I don't know, they thought I was a student. I said, listen, please, I don't need to be lectured to. I'm telling you, the question is poor. Delete it or don't. I don't care. Oh, well, you should be in bed. Get some good night's rest. 6 tomorrow. I have a video, Series 6 in 60 minutes. It's just for tonight or tomorrow morning before you test. I have them for every one of them. I'm telling you, Brian, I'm getting such positive feedback on my every series in 60 minutes videos.
I like it.
Erica, there are no nominal yield videos, but I do have, you don't need nominal yield. There's no need for that video because that's the coupon rate or the fixed or stated. What you need, Erica, is the video that I will link to on the teeter-totter seesaw and the relationship of the nominal yield, current yield, and yield to maturity. Again, don't overdose on the SIE, but on the 7, if you're coming back for a 7, that would be a bigger deal. But yeah, you do get tested on the inverse relationship of bond prices and interest rates and how that affects it. So Brian and I, that's when we're doing that. We're doing our teeter-totter season. There you go. Let me know what you think. So far, the comments are pretty good. So you're not going to pass tomorrow based on watching the 60 minutes.
No.
The 60 minutes is or fail. The 60 minutes is just trying to get you some good flow. So what I mean by good flow is, I always tell people, if you don't think it's going to be positive, just shut it down, because it's supposed to help you kind of in your own mind. Kind of, most people don't wake up in the morning think we have a circadian rhythm like I'm going to take a 6 or a 7. So the goal of the video is just to kind of get your brain, fired up. Monday, all right. I think I gave you his Test Geek Exam Prep LLC, Brian.
For the video link specifically.
Okay, so Test Geek
Exam Prep .teachable.com.
Teachable.com. Can you check out my banner and see if I got that right? Is that
Test Geek Exam Prep.teachable.com. Perfect.
okay? So we'll keep that in our banner inventory.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for asking.
Let's see, where are we at here? Video links. Okay, we got that. There you go. There you go. Oh, with a month out, I wouldn't worry about it, James.
Wow.
A month out, that's fine. You're right where you need to be. If I were your accountability partner, I kind of think of myself as a fake accountability partner. I can't hire you or fire you or any of that stuff. But if I was your real accountability partner and you did a final and you got a 70 with a month out, I'd feel pretty good.
Can I just add one thing to this comment, Dean?
What's that?
Can I just add one comment to this?
Oh, you can add any comments you ever want, my friend.
To James, stop listening to other people, please. We're going to have 147 different opinions. Everybody's got 2 elbows. Everybody's got 2 opinions.
Yeah, I would tell you too. Brian, sometimes it's more difficult when you're studying with others, because some people come back and say, "Oh, it's the easiest test I ever did. I know what the big deal is." Other people come back, "Oh my God, it's the hardest thing I ever did."
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Brian. Sometimes you got to kind of lock it down and just, I recently, Brian, had somebody who I told him, we just had our guest here, Sky, about study groups. I'm usually a big fan, but I had to tell this person she needs to leave the study group she's in, because they're just confusing her more. They're all confused. There's nobody there who's squared away enough to be leading a study group, and you got to guard your psyche. And so I felt bad, because I am a big fan of study groups, but I'm not a fan if there's no agenda, there's no, nobody who knows it well enough to know if people are on the right track or wrong track. And so there's an example where everybody, then they were all, James, using different vendors, and, vendors have different quirks, if you will. And, thank you, Willie. Thank you. Got the, what I call the hat trick, the trifecta.
The Triple Crown.
The Triple Crown. I don't know, Willie, did you study 30 days? I didn't see the 30-day part.
30 days for all 3? I don't think so.
Would you suggest to study hours before the test? Well, Bruce, everybody's a little different. It depends on your psyche and your confidence. I think you need to get a good night's rest. So I usually recommend, depending on confidence level, that they do low key the day before. If your confidence level is high and you want to keep your rhythm and you feel good doing a practice one, I'm not opposed to it. But the time for remediation is rapidly closing. It's like an option. The time value is eroding. So I would be kind of winding down as I get closer to the test. So I'm not a big fan of the hours before the test, because you're not going to learn anything new and it could push something out. So like I say, watch a video, a series 6, series 7 and 60 minutes. Maybe look over your notes. Low key, I wouldn't be trying to learn new information. The days of cramming are over. Your thoughts, Brian, on how?
Absolutely. Reviewing notes, I think, is great. Just kind of one more time.
Keep your rhythm.
It's like your 6 and 60 minutes, right? It starts focusing you, put your brain in there.
Yeah.
That's all you want. You're not learning anything new.
No, yeah. And the night before, Bruce, whatever you do to relax, nice dinner. I like to have a nice scotch every now and again, a cigar, whatever.
Just,
you really want to be, your game face is what you're working on. Well, he's the test geek. There's not Guru's Pearl. I'm the guru and he's the test geek. I'm kidding, but we are affiliated species, so to speak.
Yes. INVE debit all work. I am market value, excess.
We're asking Brian to do a lot of whiteboard work. I'm not sure. You want to give him a short market value thing real quick? It's up to you, Brian. We don't want to wear Brian out because he won't join us. And then I'm going to have to go get a whiteboard.
I've got ink in my blood, man.
All right. Okay. So here you go. Let me give him his real estate. John, I have a margin video. I will link it. It takes me about 24 hours, but I'll link it. It's all you need for the series 7 on margin. Don't overdose. Only 3 or 4 margin questions on series 7.
Don't overdose on margin at all. So in a short account, the first thing you have to do, the sale price of the stock plus the 50% deposit. That is what gets you started. If you can't do that, then the whole short margin blows up because that's where it begins, is the credit balance.
I call that the initial setup, John, the initial setup.
Yeah. And then you subtract that, the actual market value, and that's what gives you equity.
Well, I would add, Brian, that what people get hung up a lot of times, John, is that short market value is what you owe, right? So the second ledger line is still what you owe. It's just you owe securities now.
Yeah. And then, of course, you still have the loan value, which is the way the test calls it. A lot of the test prep people call it the Reg T value, right? Which is 50% of the credit. 50% of the market value. And that gives you the excess equity SMA. Again, you're not going to have to do much, if at any, short margin math.
Yeah.
That's short margin math in 32 seconds.
I got to tell you, John, I've had some Past Perfect students who send me questions from Past Perfect that are outrageous on short accounts. I would tell you, I would definitely know the 30%. I would definitely know that you have to borrow the stock. There's a loan consent form, and it's not required, but that's working at the borrowed stock. And I don't know, credit by 1.3. What do you think, Brian? Do they need to know market? No,
don't worry about it. No.
Yeah, I'll link to the, so I'm always interested in your feedback. So Richard, what I'm trying to do in these 2 replays of the live streams is try and link to the appropriate video, whether it's Brian or myself. And then I'm also trying to, in like the explicated practice files, give me time, but I'm going to start linking to the question rationales as well. So you can find videos easier, but it's a lot of work, to be honest with you. So, we're done with this. It takes me, another 30, 40 minutes to timestamp it.
Just remember, there's 3 margin questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I took the SIE. Oh, thanks. Willie, people find them, it's always surprising me when I get recommendations for videos people want. I go, that's going to be a dud. And almost all the videos that were my idea don't do as well as the ones that are test takers' ideas. So I've learned to kind of ride the horse in direction it's going. Somebody says, hey, can you do this? I was like, hey, let's give it a try. Give it a try. Yeah, I think like I say, I don't want people to think I'm trying to say that you can watch the 60-minute video and pass. I just, I always have to stress that to people because I'm afraid I'm going to get some nasty person says, I failed my exam, because of your 60-minute video. I'm going to say, really?
I don't think so.
Look inward, my friend. SMA is the excess equity. It's the holding tank for that excess equity. So I'm with Brian. I don't think if you tell me that you missed the mark, John, because of SMA, the holding tank for your excess equity, I think you're going to have a hard time. But in my video, I go over that at length. So check out my video, John. I love the title. Pay attention to the title of my video. It's called, ready? Don't Overdose on Margin.
Yeah.
That is the title of that lecture.
Is this past perfect stuff again?
Yeah. What's that?
Is this past perfect? We're talking.
Might be. It sounds like it. But John, I tell you, that's all you need for the test. So I had a Merrill Lynch guy, and I'm so proud he listened to me. So. Well, I have a nice but beautiful slide that shows the differences, which is very testable. I'll link Simone. I have a little 15-minute video where I do a comparison and contrasting with open and closed, and I'll link to that, but that's very testable on all exams. Yeah. SIE, the Series 7, 65, 66.
That's actually a pretty critical question for almost every exam.
Yeah. So
it's one area that you absolutely need to know is the difference between open end and closed end. That is probably the most valuable question that anybody can ask when first starting these exams.
Yeah, I agree. So Simone, I have longer lecture, but what I'll link to is my little 15-minute version of the closed versus the open. Okay, let's see. I think we're at our hour mark.
Wow, that was fast.
John, should you get the Kaplan, just get Brian's study course. Well, Brian is a bridge, remember? So without the Kaplan, there's no bridge. So, I don't know, Brian. I think you should definitely get his study course. But I think Brian would want you to lay some base, don't you think, Brian?
That's exactly. I tell a lot of people my stuff is not a standalone solution. It is a bridge between the textbooks and the real exam.
Yeah, so
that's where I stand. There's the test geek right there.
So there you go. You got it directly from the test geek himself.
I want to make sure everybody knows.
That's really frustrating. That is really frustrating. You know,
goes into great detail.
They tell you, don't worry, it's not on the exam. Then why is it in the book? I'll tell you why. My theory is nobody wants to have a smaller book or smaller questions, so they never get smaller. The questions, the Q banks never get smaller. Our 65 book, I say collectively, we at Kaplan, that book is now bigger than the 7 book, and the exam hasn't changed. And the guy who's in charge of it says, "Well, Dean, I'd rather have abundance than scarcity." And I'm not really sure. That's the other reason I think Brian exists as well as a bridge. Because, there's a distillation of what's actually testable versus which is nice to know, right? So all the books could be much skinnier than they are.
Yes.
I do. It's a whole playlist. So if you go to I'll link to it low, but I have 6 separate playlists. There's 14 videos where you can watch me go through that outline, each and every item, and tell you what's important about it. So there's 14 videos. It's called the Series 7 Content Outline Explication. Okay, well, we're closing up here. We're coming in on the hour, so we try and keep it on the hour. EPS is not heavy, but definitely is going to know price to earnings ratio. I would definitely know dividend payout ratio. I'm going to do a little balance sheet income statement lecture, and I'll put it in there as well. But if you tell us you missed your mark because of earnings per share, I'm going to say, I don't think so. Thanks, John. We love referrals. Both Brian and I love referrals. That's the proof, right? I mean, the growth in the channel is a direct result of test taking victories and referrals. So
that's exactly
I had somebody give me a hard time that, well, you're after views. I go, my views are a direct result of the added value. So the views are a metric that is people finding the channel helpful, not me saying, come watch my stuff. So we love referrals. So we thank you so much. By the way, and both Brian and I are trusted sources of many other people. I mean, so we have a lot of training departments. We have to refer people to our channels and his supplements. So, our reputation in helping test takers is very important to us because, that's kind of people we are, but also it's a pretty simple business at that level. If people pass their tests and they're happy, they'll tell people, right? And if they're unhappy, they don't pass their tests, hopefully they don't blame us. Maybe what I mean by that is, there's something they can see how they messed up. Kudos, Jay. Kudos. No margins. There you go. A lot of variable annuities. I'm getting that quite a bit, Jay. So I'm going to put a variable annuity lecture into this replay for folks. Pretty basic stuff on variable annuities, but I'm getting that a lot. Kaplan, way to go. Good. Okay. So we're at 1 hour. The 1 hour recap is complete gold. Thanks, you, Vic. I find those, like I said, I'm thinking about Vic putting him in a separate playlist where it says your series in 60 minutes is a whole playlist. Let me know what you think of that idea. We'll put them in one spot where they can find them. There's Brian's website. Let's see, I just checking. Okay, we got everything. Anything? Remember, inch by inch. Your exam is a cinch, yard by yard. Your exam is hard. Brian, do you have anything? What's your mantra?
You take the test. Don't let the test take you. Stay with what you know.
I love it. All right, guys. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.